Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. My name is Travis Allison. I blog about running a great summer camp at camphacker.tv.
Hi, my name is Dan Weir. I'm the Director of Camping Services at Frost Valley YMCA. Frost Valley is a year-round camp conference education facility up in the Catskill Mountains of New York.
And my name is Gabrielle Rail, and I'm one of the directors at Camp Waro. Camp Waro is an all-girls camp in the Laurentians of Quebec, and I'm chatting with you guys from Montreal.
And my name's Joe Richards. I'm the Executive Director of Pierce Williams Christian Center, which is a summer camp and retreat facility, part of the United Church of Canada's camping system. And we are located in Fingal, Ontario, about halfway between Detroit and Toronto.
Fantastic. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to have the whole gang. Today we're going to be talking about a pricing structure that some camps have made work really well for them. And it comes out of the Y system, and both Dan and Joe have implemented it in their camps. And so I have some questions to ask them about that, and wanted to make sure that Gab was on here because I wanted to see if there's a way that this sort of pricing structure might work in a private setting as well. So, Dan, I'm going to start with you. Were you around for when the tiered pricing was implemented at Frost Valley?
I was, yeah. It was implemented in 2008. And so when the concept was first pitched to me, I had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, you want to charge people more? I'm so confused. And the way it was explained to me is that it started out at the YMCA of San Diego. And they noticed that some kids that were coming to camp couldn't afford camp and that were receiving financial assistance. And that some kids that were coming to the camp were pulling up in BMWs and Lexuses and Infinities and could clearly afford much more than they were giving. So they were trying to figure out a way to provide a camp program that would serve all and would still speak to people as in wanting to appreciate the camp, because the board itself for the San Diego Y, from what I understand, was made up of people that could afford more and were saying you should raise your prices. You should raise your prices. But the camp director and the exec knew that they would be serving less children in the long run. So they started out with, from what I understand, a $200 price difference, and starting with 3 tiers. So you have your lowest tier, which for arbitrary numbers, let's just say it's $400. So that is a subsidized rate for your camp, and it's not the average rate you would charge people. Tier B would be $600, and that would be what you would probably charge that summer. And that would be, so you were serving the kids that can't afford camp. And then Tier A would be $800. So the people that could afford more would be paying you more, and it's just, again, furthering your mission of serving more kids. I think for me, there's always, when I'm talking to people about financial aid, I'm always encouraging families to fill out the application. And then there's this hesitation from some people that really are in need to ask for more money. And I constantly reassure people that our mission is to serve as many children as possible, and that we really want your child to have a camp experience. So when we took on tiered pricing in 2008, our audience definitely, it was a learning curve, but there was never a negative reaction to it. It was more like, well, what is this? The registration form had 1 price on it last year, and now it has 3. What we decided to go with was that our Tier C was actually the bare cost to run the camp, and that Tier B and A actually just goes back to fund the operation. So we were able to keep our costs overall lower, because 50% of our children that come to Frost Valley actually pay a higher tier. And so it's been a great success. For us, it's been allowing us not to increase our prices dramatically. Like, for instance, we only increased $30 from last season to this season. And I know that's something that I've talked with Joe about a number of times, that it allows for you to have that fluctuation with your pricing of still providing camp for everybody. And especially in the U.S. with the economy and what it is, we're finding more and more people are choosing to go to 1 camp session instead of 2. That tiered pricing allows for people to do it. So we've had it since 2008. It's been a great success. Parents really look forward to it. One of the modifications we've made recently is we used to do early registration, where we would just release We basically just encourage people to pay in full by December 31st and just released last summer's price. We actually have been now deciding our prices in May for the next year, and we've been having even more people pay tiered pricing. So people want to take advantage of this. There is a good amount of people that appreciate what our camp does and are not necessarily looking for the price break, but they're looking to give back to the camp community, which we find fantastic. And I've heard the other piece of feedback I've heard is that parents really like it, in the sense that when they're recommending the camp to another friend, they don't feel this pressure to all of a sudden say you have to pay this price. Now they know they can kind of choose their price. And for us, we charge $16.30 for 2 weeks of camp, for our bottom level tier, for 2014, and that's a mortgage payment. That's a lot of money for people to really invest in something, and especially something that might be new to the family, or someone in the family's never gone to camp, and not have that same level of appreciation we all do. So we've had great success with tiered pricing, and that's our story and kind of the origin of it, of what I know. But
Cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll come back to that. Let me ask Joe how
Yeah.
it went implementing it there, and then I have some other follow-up questions as well. How'd it go for you, Joe?
It went good. I think we implemented the same year, 2008. I recall that my office manager was sort of freaked out by the whole idea of tier-based pricing. It took my board of directors a few years to wrestle with the idea of what tier-based pricing was and how it would work. And it was a lot of conversations about, is it fair? And I was like, well, it's not fair. It's fair. She goes, well, this is a difficult decision. And I said, not for us. She goes, no, but for the families. It forces them to choose. And I was like, well, yeah, but that's their decision. That has nothing to do with us, right? Like when it comes back to us, we just input it into the computer. Our program doesn't change. Nothing changes. It's a way to let them know how much camp actually costs. Now, we're at a much different price point than, let's say, Frost Valley, right? So for a week of camp, our tier 1 pricing. So we go
Uh-oh. Joe, we can hear you talking emphatically. We can see you talking emphatically, but we can't hear you.
at all. Like, did it
Now
cut
we can.
out? I tell you.
So you're saying tier 1 pricing
Okay.
is?
So 250. Tier
It's
1
$250.
pricing is $250 a person, and then tier 2 pricing is $80 more than that at $330 a person, and then tier 3 is $80 more than that at $410 a person. We've done the math, and it's somewhere right between $400 and $430 to run summer camp, if we were to account for all of the things in our budget that are summer camp, and half my salary, and I've done all the math because it's when we were applying to become a United Way organization, it was a clear budget that we could work through and see exactly what those costs are.
Right. So I've talked to some camps about
now,
this.
when we implemented it, the first year was by far the roughest.
Yes? How come?
Well, in the first year of implementing it, Travis, we had a lot of confusion, and I think that it was people. We had said what the program was and how it would be implemented, but people were thinking that we were raising the price, and I said, well, no, then choose to pay tier 1, like you have that choice, but then I feel guilty paying tier 1, and I said, well, I can't help you with that, but that's your choice. And so there were people that first year. Apparently, we lost a few campers from it, and it was weird. 2008 was a weird year. The financial crisis was existing before that in our area, and so we actually lost 100 campers that year. And so the question was it because of tier-based pricing, or was it because of the financial issues that were going on and whatnot? And the board convened like emergency meetings, and I was like, I told you numbers would be down months ago, with or without tier-based pricing, based on camper numbers. The local Children's Aid Society halved their number, so instead of sending us 66, they only sent us 33, which takes care of like 1/3 of our missing campers. Like, I know where they are. They're just not here. So that confusion sort of abated.
That line never goes over
we've
well.
We've never. Oh, I know where they are. They're at home, or they're going on vacation, or they're choosing to spend their money somewhere else. And we actually did a series of phone calls out to parents to ask, hey, why didn't you come back to camp this year? And very few out of like 200 or 300 phone calls to parents from that year and previous years, it was never "you suck." Right? That was never the response. The response was we're just choosing to do this year, or our kids are playing sports this year, or our kids are doing this. And so what really helps a board, that line, Dan, might not help a board, but what does help a board is when since 2008, we've seen nothing but numbers go up. And that has been a really solid point in the tier-based pricing model, is that it's a model that new people, parents who are new to us, appreciate it more than parents who are old to us, right? Because they look at it as, you're letting me choose what to pay to come to camp. That's amazing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, great. We're amazing. That's perfect. So it's very helpful for them to see, and we've had parents move within our tiers as well. So sometimes if a parent can afford tier 3, but the next year they can't, I don't ask questions. I don't actually pay attention to what parents pay, because that's not the reason the program exists.
Exactly. Yeah. I always tell families that the only people that really know are the registrars in the office, and they never, to be honest with you, they never interact with the kids. They're always in the office, interacting with you. So there really isn't anybody figuring out who earns what tiers and that sort of thing. Because I have had returning families say, "Oh, we can't give as much this year," and I'm like, "It's okay. It's all right with us. We're not going to treat your child any differently."
And I think, Dan, Joe and I have had that discussion before, but I think that's important. That I think that question may come up for families. Does my child get a different experience because of where they have chosen to pay, or where we've had to choose to pay this year?
It totally, it's definitely a factor. I think about it in the sense that they're sending their child away, and when the child's there, there's nothing they can do to control their child's camp experience. So the best they could do is micromanage every part of it beforehand and worry about it. And I say that lovingly. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but it goes from everything from making sure they have money in the camp store to making sure that the nurses know who they are. That all those little details, and making sure that the camp director isn't offended that they chose a different price.
Right.
I think plays into their mind. So.
Right. So Dan, what was actually? Let me just say one thing first. Actually, and I have a question for Gab, and then I'm going to come back to you, Dan. I promise. When I've talked to clients, when I've talked to our old camp about this structure, and they're having a hard time getting their head around what this does or how they set it up, I've said to them a lot like what it sounds like you both did, is the lowest tier. You're calling it tier C, Dan. Joe's calling it something else. For that lowest tier, you basically set that price based on this year's prices. So you're looking at next year's. You set that at this year's prices, and then coming out of the nonprofit world, I sort of know what this is like. And our camp in particular is subsidized by a grant from the church every year, and that where I would encourage them to pick tier two would be take that grant out of the income, and then figure out what the price per camper would be, and then make that tier 2. And then tier 3, the top tier, is think about sustainability. Think about finding a price where you are running your camp, and in Gab's family's case, they're running their camp as a business, but not just I know this is not the case at Warrow. I know camp is was one of the camps I respect for how well they run it. But some camps who run it as a family just sort of run it like, I don't know, a little mom and pop place. And you need to think about it as a business where you want the business to be there in 20 years and you want the buildings to be renewed. And you have to think about that. So when you account for all of that spending, that's where you set your top tier. So sometimes your one in the middle is the one that you sort of fudge a little bit. But if you think about, people recommend that you should be spending 8% of your income on marketing. So you add that into the budget. And people say that you should spend the total value of your property, including replacement of all the buildings and buying that same piece of property again today. You should be spending 1% of that value every year on maintenance and capital projects in order to keep the value the same. So figure that in, and that's how you get to the top tier. So if the difference being, so I guess today's pricing and top tier being the best possible planner, accounting in for everything you can, or these two prices are pretty easy to set. And then I think really the one in the middle, you just divide this difference by 2, and that's where you pin that number to.
Yeah.
So that's how I've encouraged camps who've talked to me about it to think about it. Gab, I wonder if in a private camp situation, the message or instituting something like this is a little different. There's no doubt. Do you think it's possible to have that set up in a private situation?
I think for me, it's a very attractive, it's a very attractive registration option for clients. And this is something, especially since I think we spoke about this a couple of years ago, and it's something that just kept my wheels going. And I think that private camps, just like Y camps or religiously affiliated camps, they're all in a different spectrum within those organizations. And in private camps, you have private camps that have a large profit margin, a very large profit margin, all the way to private camps that have a very slender profit margin. And I think that's the same with Y camps and so on and so forth. And I think it's really looking at your profit margin and what your clients are paying and can they afford the 3-tier system. And for us, that's something that we've really looked at, but we're squeezed a little bit with where we are in Quebec. The financial fees that a typical Quebecer pays is a lot lower than what we can afford for the service that we want to offer. And when we compare our prices to Ontario, we're middle range. So and that's just where we are. So that's something we would love to do, but at the moment it's just not feasible because our profit margin is so slender, and we really have a slender profit margin. And the reason why that is that we can't grow any further as an organization. Basically, camps need bodies to put in beds, basically to make a profit, and physically we can't grow any further than we can. So, but since we've had those conversations, we've done little things to really try to shift and encourage as many campers to come to our camp or to go to other camps. And so we paired with the Taylor Staton Campership Fund, and we donate our money to them so that they manage where those funds go. And we have somebody from our camp on the board, but we're able to get campers from there. A small thing that we changed was, at the end of the year, if the balance of the campers' fees, if we owe them $50 because they didn't spend it in trading posts or whatever, this was totally from CampHacker as an idea. But instead of saying just writing a check back to them, we said, would you like us to write a check back to you, put it on to next year, or help donate this money to send a kid to camp? And those numbers have risen dramatically over the years. When we first started, we had maybe 2 or 3 people say yes, and now it's almost everybody that is checking that and saying we would like to donate. So there's like these little things that we've been able to do, and also payment plans, where I know a lot of private camps where it's like, this is absolute, you have no choice, this is when you're paying, and we've become very flexible, and we would like them to pay by the time their camper gets to camp, but that's not always a reality. And we do extended payment plans. So I think there's like little things that you can do financially to support families at the same time as you're making sure that your organization is able to hit the mark that you want to, invest. And that's basically what we do. We're constantly reinvesting into our camp. That's our, ignore the BMWs that we're driving. That was a gift. That's sarcasm for anybody that can't see us, but yeah. No, so that's what we do. We reinvest into our organization, and we want it to remain strong. If we ever get into a position where we can do this, or if I really like the idea. I think it gives that flexibility, and I like what Dan says in the sense that where families are talking and they want to offer to another family, oh, you should go to this camp, and that there's these price options. I think for me that's the spirit of camp. That's what it really should be about, honestly. If it's possible, that's a different scenario.
Right. It makes me think that if you're a private camp, something like if you're a private camp who was talking about this, it's nice for you to as part of your education to introduce this, to say we want camp to be as affordable as possible. So that's why we offer these two tiers. You pick whatever you like. But also, and this comes back to what my next questions for Dan and Joe are, that there's a fair amount of education that has to go in the first time that you implement this. You have to spend a lot of time and effort to tell people why you're doing it, what it's for, etc. And I think with the right education, you could implement this in a private camp. Pardon me. Because you're saying, at our current rates, we have a slim profit margin, but if we moved it up to this gives us the ability to invest in more programming for your kids, make the accommodations better, because now we have some cushion and some money to focus in reinvesting in the camp programs. And I think that's all about the education and how you talk to them about it.
Yeah, you can't expect these things to be overnight successes as well. It's not going to instantly give you 50 grand that summer. It's going to be something that becomes part of the culture.
Right.
There is a strong. I was actually in a meeting yesterday, and a camp was asking about this model because I was meeting with other United Church camps, and sadly, we had a local camp who chose to adopt this model a few years ago and then abandon it because they didn't think it was a success and people complained too much about it. And I was like, well, how many people complained? Was it one? My thing to any camp who's thinking about it or implementing it from let's say a nonprofit first, I have some ideas on the for-profit side, is it's not something to test. It's something you choose to do. And because it's literally, there's no cost to implement the program. It is like printing money on your paper. That's what it is. And Dan used the term, you're not going to get $50,000 in the first year. The funny thing is, percentage-wise, like for us, we made an additional $10,000 to $12,000 in the first year of doing it, which doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when we only generate $100,000, or at that time, $80,000 a year in camper fees, $10,000 is a huge bump to your profit line, and so it is really something that when camps, if a board's not going to fully buy into it, and a group of people, and they're just going to test it out for a couple of years, then you're not ready for it, and because then you're going to abandon it, and then what are you going to go back to? What's your pricing structure?
Right.
As far as private camps go, I think there is definitely a way, and so I spent 5 years at the Taylor Staton camps, and one of the big discussion in those management meetings every week was, how do we get more funds? And it wasn't always how do we get more funds to line our pockets to drive our Beamers. It was more, how do we get more funds because camp needs an investment. We're going to put in a new bathroom, and it's $1 million building just to put in a new bathroom, and I think that this model could work in a sense of a camp like the Taylor Staton camps, where you have a history going all the way back to 1920, and you have these generations of family who have the income, and you could say, listen, tier 1 is what we normally charge, and then tier 2 and tier 3, it's a way for them to, you market it as supporting the camp for long term, and you don't fool around with the numbers, Travis. I understood what you were saying earlier, but what I encourage anyone who's doing this, it's literally budget line by budget line to get a solid number as your tier 3. What is your highest price? Yeah. Because if somebody says, well, why did you choose that as your price? You need to be able to say, listen, I went line by line and I said, okay, Joe's salary is half camp, half rentals. You know, heating oil is 25% camp, 75% rentals. You know, souvenirs, right? And literally line by line through the budget. And then and then it pops out to say, this is the program, this is how much the program costs, and we're losing $80,000 a year. So then I take that number and I divide it by the number of campers we have that year, and I add it to our pricing, and that's where you get tier 4. Or tier 4. The mythical tier 4. We go to a 4-tier system. That would be brilliant. Tier 4 is $1 million for a week of camp. Sign up.
We actually, I hear a lot of camps calling their 4th tier financial aid. You know, like, if you can't afford any of these 3 tiers, contact us about our 4th tier. And that's how they started the conversation about the financial aid application.
Right.
I think Joe, what you're saying is, I really agree that if you're going to go this route, that you should definitely you need to commit, and it can't be, let's try this out, let's see if it works, and then in a couple of years, if it doesn't, we'll go back to the old system. I really feel like that's what you need to do. And I think what I'm saying or trying to say is that I think every camp should seriously consider doing this. And it is about educating your clients, and it is about recognizing what you believe you're able to do, and not intuitively, but by looking at your numbers and by making logical decisions. And I think that this is honestly probably the future, and I think it scares a lot of people. But I think it has to be taken seriously. So I guess what I'm saying for Waro is that it's not off the table. It's just we still have a little bit of homework to do. And by doing little things like telling your families, do you want to donate this to send a kid to camp, building that into your culture, it starts to get parents thinking. We think about this all the time. How do we get everybody to our camp, regardless of their economic background? But parents don't think about that. As you said, Dan, they're micromanaging. They're a little bit nervous. What bunk are they going to be sleeping in? Is she going to be with that girl from last year? Because I don't know if I really want that. Like, this is where their heads are at. And I hope she tries windsurfing. I really want her to be a windsurfer. These are the things that they're thinking about. And so then when we start to get them to think about, like, let's send a kid to camp, that's training them. And it's kind of, that's educating them, and doing it bit by bit is very important to build into your culture. But I think also I hear you guys saying, and I really agree with this, is don't throw this off the table. Private camps. Don't say, oh, this is something that the Y camps do. This is what a nonprofit camps do. Because I think that if you want to keep your camps full, this is sort of something that you're going to have to start to consider. And bring it to the table and see what you guys need to do to perhaps incorporate this into your organization and your camp culture.
And I think of other industries. You think of the music industry, like Radiohead's album In Rainbows. They put it up and they said, choose your price.
Pay what you want.
And they got more money than they would have if they just had the regular price and people stole it. The pay as you want for restaurants as well too. I think camp as a whole is important to keep as a staple in a child's experience growing up, and that as the market's diverse, as we have more populations that don't historically go to camp. They ACA National had a presenter on why Hispanic culture, it's not popular to go to camp, and they talked a lot about collectivism, and you really need to make it affordable for somebody to take that leap of faith, to take that risk in trying something new. And I think that is part of as a whole what we should be doing. If we truly believe in providing a camp experience for every kid, that every kid will be better off with a better camp experience, then we should figure out a way to make our pricing work for them, and to work in that way. And within your business model, if you are a private camp and you have the upper echelon in terms of demographic, then figuring out what works. But you need to make changes in your business plan in order to expand. You can't just stay with the same system. And I hear that all the time from private camps I talk to, all the time. Like, how do we expand our market without changing our business? Like, and it's like, yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
And that's why Travis gets hired as a consultant.
I think there's a big question around how we educate people and talk to them about that. But just for people who are getting their heads around setting this up, what does having a tiered system eliminate the incentives that you put forward to get people to pay early? I know that cash flow is a thing for camps, and we put in something like an early bird price because you want to get cash flow through the winter instead of all these people waiting till the last minute to pay for camp. You need to incentivize that somehow. How does this affect that sort of thing, Dan?
I'll give Travis the my registration form, and you can see in the show notes, because we do have an early bird in there, and we do have tiered pricing. And if you look right now, we've got 24 different prices on the registration form with all the different programs we offer. And I think the greater fear that I've seen, or greater motivator for people to sign up early, is the fear of being sold out at the specific time, or a specific age group, and or if you offer diverse programs, not getting into that one program. That fear of having to tell your child that they're not going to be with their friends this upcoming summer, the thing they look forward to all year long, that is a much bigger motivator than saving a small percentage of money. There's definitely a lot of people that want to save every dollar and want to feel like they get the deal as well. For us, with that being a nonprofit camp, I also reiterate with people, like, we do our best to charge as little as possible to begin with, so we don't offer sibling discounts or that sort of thing, compared to where some other camps do offer that. But I find that the fear of selling out is the biggest motivator, and you can balance both of the early bird and the tier pricing. You just have to have your ducks in a row and be prepared to talk a little bit more.
Yep. Cool. Thank you. Joe, I wanted to ask what all you did to educate people on the first year.
The first year we did a lot of, we didn't do a ton of pre-education, because it's one of those things where the write-up that you use is fairly self-explanatory. And so we just used the write-up, which I got, part of the history of how we got onto it, because I believe, unless somebody knows differently, I believe that we were the first camp in Canada to go with tier-based pricing. And I believe that it was a conversation I had with Rob Carmichael about tier-based pricing solutions, and Rob Carmichael's from Camp Brain, and we talked about, he said he recommended I call the Seattle YMCA. And so I ended up calling the Seattle YMCA and talking about tier-based pricing, and they said, oh, we took it from San Diego. And so I called San Diego and I talked about tier-based pricing. And both of them said, use our write-up, like literally take it word for word. We want to share, and so we really used that write-up and really sold it to parents, and informed. Our education was more based on our staff being able to talk about it, and our board of directors being able to talk about it with people, because those are the people who are going to be asked the questions, away from either people called the office or they see a member out in the community. And so it was all about the wording and helping them understand that there's the three sort of goals of the program. The wording is the wording's very specific about the fact that we're not just doing this to make a buck, right? it's making sure that it matches up with the camp goals. So, right, Pierce Williams Christian Center summer goals are to provide the highest quality summer programs possible, to serve all community income levels, and to preserve camp for generations to come. And those are the same three goals that the YMCA in Seattle and San Diego had. And so it was this understanding that, okay, this will help us serve all income levels. It will help us create a program that is truly amazing, but it will also help us be here for today's camper's camper, right? So the idea that a 7-year-old can send their kid here in 30 years is ideal, right? And that's where getting people to understand that this is a decision for the long-term viability of us as a program is key.
Right. Great. Oh, I was just going to turn to Dan for a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, the write-up on our website, which you can put in the show notes. It's it's on our registration page. It's a very short write-up. It says, realizing that families have different abilities to pay, Pierce Williams Christian Center offers a voluntary 3-tier payment program. You may choose the tier that is most suitable to your family. The tier system allows us to continue to offer the same low fees for summer camp while letting everyone know the true cost of camp.
Yeah.
There. Boom.
Boom. Good. Do you offer...
Laser Dan's back.
Do you offer anything, Joe, like tiered pricing for rentals?
I don't. And when Dan mentioned that, it really got me. We don't offer tiered-based pricing for rentals because rentals is our business, and I'm afraid of how the revenue agency would view that. I like the idea of seasonal rates for rentals because right now, in fact, it costs more to rent us in the winter than it does in the summer, but our summer is the busiest time. So I like the idea of saying, okay, well, in the summer on a weekend it's $25 a night per person to rent our facility. In the winter on a weekend it's $23 a night per person, and sort of, because people are going to come either way in the summer. In the winter it's harder to get people to sign up and come to use the facility. So.
So, Dan, we were talking about changing your rental and outdoor ed programming, school programming, based on the seasons. The demand in the particular time. Oh, Dan lost his internet. Dan's also texting us funny jokes. So I think we've covered a lot of this. I'm going to, if Dan gets back in, we'll give him a chance to answer that. But I think we've covered a lot of the good stuff. Is there anything else you'd add in terms of advice, Joe?
In terms of advice, I think that with tier-based pricing, I think it's being fully knowledgeable when you start the program. Knowing that there's going to be some people who don't understand it, there's going to be some confusion, but really buying into it as a program, because historically, and this is one of the things that you haven't asked, and I'm not sure what Dan's response would be, but what we find is that of 100% of our camper families, around 25 to 35% pay more than Tier 1 for us, which is great. And that's consistent the years that we've implemented the program. So it is it's a great way for us to generate more income. I do all of my camp numbers based on Tier 1. If nobody else paid any more, that's what I'm budgeting for is Tier 1 pricing. And when that other money comes in, that's great because we can use it for a variety of different things at camp. Right.
And that's really good to know. And thank you very much for sharing that. If you do happen to work at a Y, there's a good discussion about this on the Y Camp Professionals discussion group on LinkedIn. And that's a private group, so I know some stuff from there about the percentages, but I can't share it. So that would be one of the things that I'd love to see in terms of responses is camps talk about, who are willing to share, to talk about what percentage of people sign on above the base level. So I hope that some people will share those numbers. That was a great discussion. Thank you very much. I'm going to now turn us to our tool of the week. While we're waiting for Dan to come back in, and I'll try to get that going, I am going to turn to Joe first for his tool, please.
My tool this week is Bullet Journal, which is an idea, a concept. There's a website link on the show notes. Bullet Journal is this idea that you have it's a paper-based to-do system and tracking system. And right now I'm working through a wide variety of to-do systems. I for years have used Getting Things Done with David Allen, and Bullet Journal came to my attention. And Bullet Journal essentially is a concept that you take a book like a moleskin like this, and you track everything in here, and there's a legend as to moving things forward and how things are done and how to signify when they're crossed off. The website is full of great information and tells you how to set it up. And this I'm using. I'm off to Australia in a few days, and I'm actually using a bullet journal to sort of track all of my movements and things we do in Australia. So when I get back, I'll have a full history of everything we've done in Australia, where we were each day and whatnot. But the concept is that when there's to-dos and not just to-dos, but it's also for like tracking general information. You made a phone call. That's great. Just mark it in the book. And I keep one on my desk at the camp office to sort of track where I'm at and to let me know how my day has gone. And I'm actually matching it with another thing called Agile Results, which will be another tool of the week in the future.
Nice. That's good. So there's a website at bulletjournal.com that people can go to figure out how the system works. That's
correct. Yeah. And there's a video that explains it all, and it is so simple that it's one of those things where you're like, okay, because for years, and anybody who's known me has known that I owned a Palm Pilot since long ago. I've been reading ebooks since long ago, and so to go back to a paper-based system was really a conscious choice of because it's the best way, it's the most versatile way for me to track this information in a solid place. And I've used it in conjunction with an online system that I use, not TuxDuckStan, but another system that we use here. And so I use it in conjunction with that and go through both of those to sort of manage my to-dos and whatnot.
Great. Thanks very much, Joe. Gab, you might have to leave, so let me turn to you next for your tool.
Cool, thanks. My tool of the week is PicMonkey, and it's an online free picture editing software, basically. And it's if it's online, and is that a software?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Either way, it's free. You can, of course, they have like other cool things on it that you can pay for, whatever. But it is by far the easiest, most intuitive editing software, and it has really, really cool effects. And they have seasonal effects as well, so for like the holidays or. But this is for me. This is like amazing for camps because it's right in our who we need to attract with pictures, which are basically campers. And it's a lot of fun, very easy to use. And I'm going to share a picture that I did in about 10 minutes. Your pictures can look lovely.
So, Gab, it does sort of basic photo editing, resizing, brightening, that sort of stuff, plus the fun stuff that you're going to show us. Is that true?
Yeah. Okay. Now it works. Oh, here it is. I don't know if you see it, but
with your whole desktop, yeah. But we can definitely see your funny picture.
Oh well, basically, you can all the nice stuff that Instagram does. You can basically do with this with this program, and add different effects, add frames, and then like on this picture, we created sort of a monster Halloween picture, which we'll put on Facebook close to Halloween, of course, but. It's fun. It's fun. It's nice. It's easy, and I'm very confident and comfortable on Photoshop. But I use PicMonkey because it's faster, And
Right.
I'll do Photoshop stuff, but if I need to put something up online quickly and it look good, then I use PicMonkey, and all
Nice.
my staff use it too. So, yeah,
Good share. What do you
there
know what
you
the
go.
price is to buy it, Gab?
They buy you buy like certain little packages, so they'll have like picture frames, so like a Polaroid frame or like a funky like different types of frame, and then they'll like entice you with this like elegant frame, and then that might be like 99 cents or something for like seven different elegant frames, or they'll have all these different doodles, and heart doodles, star doodles, bubble speech bubble doodles, and then they'll say, like here are some, I don't know what kind of doodles, but other cool doodles if you want. So they give you a very good range of free stuff, and then they'll always have like a couple of extra things, and it's sometimes just like 99 cents for
Yeah.
one of them. So
Fun.
I
That's
like
great.
it. Yeah, and this was all free. All of these ones we didn't buy any of it. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Right on. Thank you.
no problem.
Dan, what's your tool?
So my tool is the book The Reason I Jump, and it was recently made popular by being on the Jon Stewart show,
Yeah.
and it's a fantastic book. Basically, it's the perspective of a 13-year-old boy that has autism, and it was written
Oh,
by
yeah.
a 13-year-old boy from Japan that has autism. And the reason it's my tool of the week is that I love this book. If nothing else, just hearing it from a 13-year-old's perspective, and a lot of the stuff that he shares in the book, I already knew about a child with autism, and I already knew things that were going on, or different ways to approach certain situations. But just hearing his voice is extremely powerful, and I really believe that the world would be a better place if everybody read the book.
Yeah.
I went so far. I actually bought copies for all of my year-round staff, so we're going to be reading it together. But it's just done so well, and there's even a portion of the book where he talks, the boy talks about why he enjoys nature as well. So I think it gives you really great language to talk to somebody that about the power of camp for somebody that has autism or sort of on the spectrum. But yeah, it's just great. It's just should be mandatory reading.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, and the other thing about the book that makes it really great is that the format is question and answer.
Oh, yeah.
So basically there's a question posed and then he writes an answer to it. So it's extremely easy to read as well. And yeah, I'm in love with it. So,
Right on. Good pick. Thank you.
yeah.
My pick is not something you buy. It's something that I started doing this fall, and have got a lot out of it. And I have at numerous times in my life thought that meditation would be something that would be really helpful for me, with my stress level, etc., and tried different stuff. Even from when I was a kid, when I learned first meditation methods I learned was from a friend's karate instructor. So I've thought about it often, and I've always found the problems that I think everybody has is you sit down and you can't quiet your brain enough to get to meditation, so that helps quiet your brain. So this trend, more than anything, has come out of the tech community, where people in tech startups are focusing a lot more on meditation. It's a great way to manage stress, to be more creative, to get more stuff done, etc. And so I found this suggestion there, which is to commit to a meditation of doing 100 meditative breaths a day. And they don't have to be in order. They can, or not in order. They have to be in order, I suppose, but they don't have to be in a row. If you get 25 or 30 done, then you can come back and finish them later. And I'm kind of stunned at what a difference it makes. I chronically have pain in my neck and shoulders, which seems to be where my stress goes. And going through the 100 breaths, I can get rid of that for several hours. And I do find it helps me focus. It does help me get more creative and get a lot more done if I've taken the time to do it. And I find 100 breaths takes me about 15 minutes, sometimes 20. And it's I'm not going to go into meditation technique. You should look up mindfulness meditation. But this true people who practice meditation for years would shudder at the fact that you're actually counting. You're doing something active while you're meditating. But I find it's the best way for me to constantly bring my focus back to meditation instead of just all the ideas that are constantly going. And so it's given me enough focus to get through it and get some positive benefits. So I think it's been a big deal. If you look up 100 breath meditation online, you can find tons of resources for it and just an outline of what that is. So, Gab, I see that you're looking over your shoulder. Do you need to get going?
Yes, I have plumbers here to check out a system.
Let us
fix it.
Let us know how to get in touch with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yep. You can check out where I work at waro.com, or you can follow me on the Tweeterbird at Gabrielle Rail, and Rails with 2 L's.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gab, for everything today.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Take it easy. Bye.
See you later.
Joe, how can people follow your mad adventures on your sabbatical?
There, I'm live now.
Yes.
My mad adventures on my sabbatical can be followed at yoyojoe.com. I will still be tweeting at yoyojoer, and that uploads to my Facebook stuff too. So I'm not only off to Australia, but for the next 3 months, I'm on a 3-month sabbatical from work, which is a unique program to the United Church of Canada, as far as I understand, in this particular setting. And so I'm off to do some educational things, and I'm going to tour summer camps and education facilities. Thanks for your contact, Dan. Mari's hooked me up with a variety of YMCA camps, and that's great. It'll be exciting. I'm actually doing a presentation at the OCA conference in January about my trip to Australia, and so I'll have all of January to work on it without much else to bug me.
It'll be your best ever presentation.
Oh, yes, it will be.
That's awesome. Thanks a lot, Joe.
You're welcome.
See you later. Dan, where can people get in touch with you, follow you, etc.?
Yeah, so I work at Frost Valley YMCA, which is frostvalley.org, and I write occasionally at danlovescamp.com and unplugacamp.com. I also tweet at danlovescamp.
Very cool. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. So you can find the show notes for this show if you're listening to the audio. If you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, and it'll be the links to the people's picks of the tools of the week, and also their all of our previous shows. So we invite you to go there to do that. If you're watching us on YouTube, I hope that you'll click the subscribe button just under the left-hand side. I can't do the left and right. Just under the left-hand side of this video, you'll see a subscribe button, and then you get notified every time we put out a new show, and we really appreciate that. You will have heard a couple of ads at the beginning of the show, but I wanted to take a moment just to highlight one thing that's not an ad, but something that I really strongly believe in, and that's the Camping Professionals group on Facebook, which you can get to by going to facebook.com/groups/camppros. And as of yesterday, that is a group of 2,000 people involved in the camping industry full-time, or wanting to be full-time, people that know that this is a career and want to build their own professionalism. And it's amazing discussion goes on there. And both Dan and Joe have been great at helping out others and posing their own questions, but being involved in that. So thank you to the two of you. But really, thank you so much to all the camping professionals around the world who have been a big part of that community. Again, that's at facebook.com/groups/camppros. You can click on that and request an invite if you're not already part of the group. So thank you very much for that. If you have any questions you want us to deal with, email me, travis@socialcatalyst.ca. And that's everything. Thanks for the evening, friends.